The morning sun tried its best to break through the clouds as rain pattered against the windows of Pine Valley's most popular coffee shop, Morning Brew. The small-town cafe buzzed with the usual mix of locals getting their daily fix before heading to work. Lily Dawson pushed open the door, shaking raindrops from her jacket, the smell of fresh coffee wrapped around her like a warm blanket. At 26, Lily carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew this town inside out. Being Sheriff Thomas Dawson's only daughter meant everyone in Pine Valley knew her name, her face, and her story. Since she was little, Lily had looked up to her father. His badge, his uniform, his commitment to keeping their town safe, all of it shaped her own sense of right and wrong. Now, as a deputy herself while studying law part-time, she felt like she was finally walking her own path while honoring his. "Morning, Lily. The usual?" called out Hank from behind the counter. His friendly face had been serving coffee here since before Lily was born. "You know it," she smiled, already reaching for her wallet. Her fingers searched her purse with growing concern. She checked again, more carefully this time. The familiar leather wallet her father had given her on her 21st birthday was nowhere to be found. Lily glanced around the cafe, eyes settling on her favorite corner table, the one with the perfect view of Main Street and the old courthouse. Today, someone else sat there, a man she'd never seen before in Pine Valley, dressed in what looked like an expensive suit, though his tie hung loose and his hair seemed a bit messy. Papers spread across the table as he stared intensely at them, occasionally making notes. "I'll pay you tomorrow, Hank." "I think I left my wallet in the car," Lily said, not taking her eyes off the stranger. As Hank nodded understandingly, Lily walked back outside to her car. She searched under the seats in the glove compartment and even checked her jacket pockets again. Nothing. A cold feeling settled in her stomach as she remembered passing close to the stranger's table when she first entered. The expensive watch on his wrist glinted under the cafe lights when she walked back in. Strange, she thought. His clothes looked expensive but worn, like he'd been traveling for days. And why would a business type like him come to a small place like Pine Valley? Lily watched him from near the counter. Something about him just didn't sit right. The way he kept looking around. How he'd angle his body whenever someone walked past like he was hiding his papers. "Who's that guy?" she whispered to Hank. "No idea. First time I've seen him." "Ordered plain black coffee and hasn't said much else." Lily felt a surge of certainty. Her wallet had been in her purse when she entered the cafe. She'd passed his table. Now it was gone. And here was this outsider, someone who clearly didn't belong. Without giving herself time to doubt, Lily approached Mary, the cafe manager. "Mary, I think that man took my wallet," she said, her voice carrying across the morning buzz of conversation. The cafe quieted immediately. Heads turned toward Lily, then toward the stranger. "Excuse me?" The man looked up, his deep voice calm but edged with surprise. "My wallet," Lily repeated, louder now. "It was in my purse when I came in. I walked past your table and now it's gone." People were staring openly now. Mrs. Jenkins from the flower shop, Officer Rodriguez who worked with Lily at the station, the high school principal, all watching with curious eyes. "Young lady, I assure you I haven't taken anything of yours," the man said, closing his folder. "You're welcome to check my things if it puts your mind at ease." Lily took a step forward. "I'm Deputy Dawson with the Pine Valley Sheriff's Department," she said, summoning her most official voice. "And I'd like to do exactly that." The name Dawson rippled through the cafe. Whispers of sheriff's daughter bounced between tables. The stranger stood up slowly. He was taller than she'd realized. "By all means, deputy." With everyone watching, Lily checked his briefcase, his coat pockets, even looked under his papers. Nothing. The embarrassment started to creep up her neck in a warm flush. But something still bothered her. Why was he so calm? Why did he seem almost amused? "I'm calling this in," she decided, pulling out her phone and dialing the station. She turned away from the stranger's level gaze as she explained the situation to Deputy Wilson. "We'll send someone over," Wilson promised. The stranger sat back down, returned to his papers like nothing had happened. The cafe slowly returned to its normal chatter, though many eyes still darted between Lily and the man she'd accused. 10 minutes later, Deputy Carter arrived. He talked with Lily first, then approached the stranger. What happened next confused Lily entirely. After a brief, quiet conversation where the man showed Carter something from his wallet, Carter's whole demeanor changed. The deputy stood straighter, nodded respectfully, and walked back to Lily with a strange expression. "Lily," he said quietly, "do you know who that is?" "A thief?" she suggested, though her confidence was fading. Carter shook his head. "That's Daniel Hall, the new state attorney general. He's here for the Henderson trial." The blood drained from Lily's face. The new state attorney general, the top prosecutor in the entire state, the person who technically oversaw all law enforcement officers, including her and her father, and she'd just accused him of stealing her wallet in front of half the town. As if the universe wanted to drive home her mistake, Lily's phone buzzed, with a message from her father. "Found your wallet in the driveway when I got home. Must have fallen when you got in your car this morning. I'll bring it to the station." Lily looked back at the Attorney General, who was gathering his papers, apparently ready to leave. Their eyes met briefly. His expression wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse. It was evaluating, measuring, like he was seeing right through her. What Lily didn't know then was how this moment would change everything. For her father, and for the entire town of Pine Valley. The news about what happened at Morning Brew spread through Pine Valley faster than wildfire in August. By lunchtime, the story had grown bigger with each telling. Some said Lily had handcuffed the stranger. Others claimed she'd drawn her service weapon. The truth was embarrassing enough without the extras. Sheriff Thomas Dawson was in the middle of a budget meeting when his secretary knocked urgently on the door. "Sheriff, you need to see this," she said, handing him a note. The sheriff's face darkened as he read it. He excused himself from the county commissioners and hurried back to his office, where he immediately called the state courthouse. "Yes, this is Sheriff Dawson from Pine Valley. Yes, regarding Attorney General Hall, I understand. Yes, my deepest apologies." When he hung up, he sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the family photo on his desk. Him, his late wife, and Lily at her police academy graduation. He picked up the phone again and called the station. "Get Deputy Dawson in my office. Now." Lily had been hiding in the records room most of the morning, pretending to organize files while avoiding the knowing looks and whispers from her fellow deputies. When Officer Patel found her, his usually cheerful face was serious. "Your dad wants to see you. And Lily? He doesn't look happy." The walk to her father's office felt like the longest of her life. She'd messed up before, everyone did. But something about this felt different. Bigger. The wallet her father had found sat heavy in her pocket, a constant reminder of her mistake. Sheriff Dawson closed the door behind her. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Dad, I'm sorry about the wallet thing, but this isn't about the wallet." He rarely raised his voice, especially at work. "The man you accused of theft this morning is Daniel Hall." "I know that now," Lily said quietly. "The state attorney general." Her father laughed without humor. "Not just the state attorney general. He's the youngest attorney general in state history. A rising star who's made national headlines for cracking down on corruption. A man who's put 3 corrupt sheriffs behind bars in the last year alone." Lily's stomach twisted. "I didn't know." "And you should have. This is exactly why we don't make accusations without evidence. Basic police work, Lily." The sheriff walked to the window, trying to calm himself. "He could end both our careers with a single phone call if he wanted to. Why would he do that over an honest mistake?" Her father turned back to her. "Because he's here investigating evidence handling in rural counties, including ours." The words hit Lily like a punch. "What? Why?" "There have been complaints about inconsistencies in evidence procedures. Nothing I was worried about. We run a clean department. But now, after what you did, how does this look?" Before Lily could answer, the phone on his desk rang. The sheriff answered it, his professional voice back in place. "Yes. I see. Of course we'll accommodate him. 20 minutes? We'll be ready?" He hung up and looked at his daughter. That was Hall's assistant. He's coming here now. The next 20 minutes were a blur. The sheriff's office was quickly tidied. Coffee was made. Lily changed into her freshly pressed uniform from her locker. She'd never seen the department so nervous, not even during the governor's visit last year. When Daniel Hall walked in, the whole station went quiet. In his perfectly tailored dark blue suit, crisp white shirt, and subdued tie, he looked every bit the powerful state official he was. Two serious-looking assistants accompanied him, carrying leather briefcases and tablets. Hall scanned the room briefly before his eyes found Lily. There was a flicker of recognition, but his face remained professionally neutral as Sheriff Dawson escorted him and his team to the conference room. "Deputy Dawson will join us as well," Hall stated rather than asked when the sheriff tried to close the door with Lily outside. The meeting started with formal introductions. Hall's team included Beth Chen, his chief investigator, and Ryan Torres, a state evidence specialist. They spoke about protocols, procedures, and policies until Lily thought her head would explode from the tension. Finally, Sheriff Dawson brought up the morning's incident. "About what happened at the cafe, Mr. Hall. My daughter would like to formally apologize." All eyes turned to Lily. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Hall. "Sir, I made a terrible mistake this morning. I jumped to conclusions without evidence and publicly accused you wrongfully. There's no excuse for my behavior. I'm deeply sorry." Hall studied her for a moment. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. He slid a piece of paper across the table, a printout from Morning Brew's security camera showing Lily's wallet falling from her jacket pocket in the parking lot, well before she had entered the cafe. "I had Ms. Chen collect this footage after our encounter," Hall said. "Tell me, Deputy Dawson, what made you so certain I had taken your wallet?" Lily felt her face grow hot. "You were a stranger, in a small town where I know almost everyone. And your clothes seemed expensive, but you looked disheveled. So appearance was a factor in your judgment?" Lily nodded uncomfortably. "I'd been driving since 4 a.m. to get here for the Henderson case," Hall explained, his voice level. "As for my appearance, this watch was my father's. He was a factory worker for 40 years. He saved for 3 years to buy it. The suit is expensive because in my position I need to look the part, even when I've been on the road for hours and haven't had time to freshen up." The shame Lily felt was overwhelming. But it was his next words that truly shook her. "I didn't reveal who I was at the cafe because I believe everyone deserves equal treatment under the law, not special treatment because of their position. I find it troubling that a law enforcement officer would make such hasty judgments based on appearances." He looked directly at Sheriff Dawson. "Especially in a department already under scrutiny for possible evidence mishandling." The silence in the room was deafening. "We'll begin our official review tomorrow morning," Hall continued, gathering his papers. "I expect full cooperation from every member of this department." As he stood to leave, he paused beside Lily. "One more thing, Deputy Dawson. I wasn't just passing through Pine Valley. I'll be here for at least a month. The Henderson trial is just my cover story." His voice lowered so only she could hear. "My real purpose is to find out if the rumors about evidence tampering in this county have merit. After today's display of judgment, I'm even more interested in what I might find." The Pine Valley Courthouse stood at the center of town, a 100-year-old building of red brick and white columns that had seen generations of local justice. For the next 3 weeks, it also became Daniel Hall's temporary office. Lily couldn't avoid him even if she tried. Her duties often took her to the courthouse, and it seemed like every time she turned a corner, the Attorney General was there, reviewing documents, interviewing county employees, or simply standing by the large windows overlooking the town square. He never acknowledged her beyond a brief nod, which somehow felt worse than if he'd been openly hostile. "He's got half the records room boxed up," Deputy Wilson told Lily one morning as they grabbed coffee in the break room. "They're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb." "Has anyone asked what exactly they're looking for?" Lily asked, trying to sound casual. Wilson shrugged. "Your dad says to cooperate and not ask questions." The other deputies had mostly stopped teasing Lily about the coffee shop incident, but something worse had taken its place, a growing unease about her loyalty. She heard the whispers when she entered rooms, conversations that stopped suddenly. She'd become an outsider in the department she'd grown up in, all because of one mistake. At home, things weren't much better. Her father stayed late at the office, nearly every night trying to manage the state investigation while keeping regular department business running. When he was home, he was distracted, worried. Lily tried to talk about the investigation several times, but he shut down each attempt. "Just do your job and let me handle Hall," he'd say, but Lily couldn't stop thinking about it. Why Pine Valley? Why now? One evening, after her shift ended, Lily found herself lingering in the records room. The state team had taken over one section, but most of the older files remained untouched. On a hunch, she began pulling cases from 3 years back, around the time when Joe Wells, their former evidence clerk, had left the department suddenly to pursue other opportunities. Joe had always been friendly to Lily, sneaking her candy when she visited her dad as a teenager. His departure had been abrupt, with no goodbye party or the usual departmental farewell. Lily had thought it strange at the time, but had been away, at college and too busy to ask questions. She pulled several case files at random, focusing on ones that had gone to trial. Most seemed ordinary: drunk driving, petty theft, the usual small-town crimes. But then she noticed something odd in a case involving local businessman Frank Porter, who'd been accused of fraud but acquitted when key evidence was deemed inadmissible. The chain of custody form had been signed by Joe Wells, but the handwriting on the final entry looked different from his earlier signatures, subtle but noticeable to someone who had seen his writing on birthday cards and department memos for years. Lily pulled another Porter-related case, this one a property dispute. Again, evidence problems had led to dismissal, and again, Joe's signature looked off on the final documents. "Finding anything interesting, Deputy?" Lily jumped at Daniel Hall's voice. He stood in the doorway, jacket off, tie loosened, looking tired after what was clearly a long day. "Just reviewing some old cases," she said, quickly gathering the files, to return them to their shelves. "Any particular reason?" His tone was conversational, but his eyes were sharp, missing nothing. "Just curious about our department's history." Hall stepped further into the room. "Curious enough to stay 2 hours after your shift ended?" So he'd been watching her. The thought made her uncomfortable, but also stirred something else. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, they were looking for the same thing. "Mr. Hall," Lily said, deciding to take a risk. "What if the evidence issues aren't department-wide? What if they're connected to specific cases?" He studied her for a long moment. "Go on." "These files," she gestured to the stack she'd pulled, "they all have evidence handling problems, and they're all from when Joe Wells was our evidence clerk." "Joe Wells," Hall repeated the name. "The man who left suddenly 3 years ago?" Lily's head snapped up. "How did you know that?" "It's my job to know things, Deputy Dawson." He moved closer, glancing at the files she'd gathered. "And it's interesting that you're looking at these particular cases." "Why?" "Because they all involve Frank Porter or his businesses." Hall tapped one of the folders. "A man with a lot of influence in this county." Lily thought of Porter, the biggest donor to her father's re-election campaigns, owner of half the commercial property in town, a fixture at every community event. "You think there's a connection?" It wasn't a question, but Hall answered anyway. "I think it's worth investigating." Their eyes met, and for the first time since the coffee shop incident, Lily didn't see judgment in his gaze. She saw respect. It vanished quickly, replaced by his usual professional mask. "Put those files back exactly as you found them," he said, heading for the door. "And Deputy Dawson, this conversation never happened." The next morning, the investigation took a dramatic turn. State investigators arrived at Frank Porter's office with search warrants. By lunchtime, the town was buzzing with rumors. By dinner, Porter had hired 3 lawyers from the city. At the station, Sheriff Dawson called an emergency meeting. "They've expanded their investigation to include Porter Enterprises," he announced, looking more stressed than Lily had ever seen him. "I need everyone to remain professional, answer their questions honestly, provide whatever documents they request, but don't volunteer information. Let's not make this any worse than it already is." His eyes found Lily's across the room. "And nobody does any independent investigating. Is that clear?" Everyone nodded, but after the meeting, Lily's father pulled her aside. "What did you say to Hall?" he demanded quietly. "Nothing," she lied. "Why would you think I said anything?" "Because they pulled the exact same case files you were looking at yesterday." His voice was tight with anger and something else. Fear. "I told you to leave this alone. Dad, if something's wrong with those cases, stop." He cut her off. "You have no idea what you're getting into. Porter isn't someone you want as an enemy. Neither is the state attorney general," she countered. Her father's expression hardened. "I'm reassigning you to patrol duty, far side of the county, effective immediately." "Dad." "That's sheriff to you, deputy." He walked away, leaving Lily stunned in the hallway. As she gathered her things from her desk, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Town library, history section, 7 p.m. Come alone." No signature, but Lily knew exactly who it was from. And despite her father's warning, or maybe because of it, she knew she would be there. The Pine Valley Public Library was nearly empty at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. An elderly librarian dozed behind the front desk, and a couple of high school students huddled over textbooks in the study area. Lily made her way to the history section at the back, a quiet corner filled with dusty books about local legends and state history. Daniel Hall was already there, sitting at a small table with his back to the wall, facing the entrance. He wore jeans and a plain button-down shirt instead of his usual suit, an attempt to blend in that didn't quite work. He looked too alert, too purposeful for this sleepy library. "You're on time," he said as Lily slid into the chair across from him. "Good." "Why all the secrecy?" Lily asked, keeping her voice low. "Because I don't know who I can trust in this town." He pushed a folder across the table. "And after seeing this, you might feel the same way." Inside were photos of Joe Wells, the former evidence clerk, having dinner with Frank Porter at an expensive restaurant in the city. The date stamp showed it was 2 weeks after Wells had suddenly left the department. "This doesn't prove anything," Lily said, though her heart was racing. Maybe they were friends. Turn the page. The next photo showed Wells getting into a car with Porter. The following images showed a lakeside cabin that Lily recognized as one of Porter's vacation properties. The final photo showed Wells carrying a suitcase from the cabin to a new car, much nicer than what an evidence clerk could afford on his salary. "We tracked Wells to Florida," Hall said. "He's living in a condo on the beach, no job, no visible means of support." Lily felt sick. "You think Porter paid him to tamper with evidence?" "I think it's a strong possibility." Hall tapped the folder. "But proving it is another matter. Wells won't talk to us, says he has nothing to say about his time in Pine Valley. And Porter has too much influence locally to go after without solid proof," Lily added. Hall nodded. "Exactly. Which is why I need someone who knows this department from the inside. Someone who might notice things an outsider would miss." Lily met his gaze. "You want me to help you investigate my own department, my own father? I want you to help me find the truth." His voice remained calm, but his eyes were intense. "Isn't that why you became a deputy? To uphold justice even when it's difficult?" Lily thought about her father's warnings, his strange behavior since the investigation began. Was he involved or just trying to protect his department? "What do you need from me?" she finally asked. "Access to personnel records from the last 5 years, information about which deputies worked most closely with Wells, and anything you can tell me about your father's relationship with Porter." Lily hesitated. This felt like betrayal. But if laws had been broken, if guilty people had walked free because evidence was tampered with, wasn't the greater betrayal staying silent? "My father and Porter go way back," she said slowly. "Porter was his biggest campaign donor for the last 3 elections. They hunt together, play poker on Thursdays. But my dad's a good man. He believes in the law. Good men can make bad choices when pressured." Hall said quietly. Or they can look the other way when it's convenient. Before Lily could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Deputy Wilson. 911 at station. Current evidence tech Mike Barrow found unconscious in evidence room. Chief says all hands. She showed Hall the message. His expression darkened. This just got more complicated, he said, gathering the photos. Be careful what you say and do at the scene. If Barrow was attacked because he found something, then whoever did it might still be there. Lily finished. They left separately, Lily heading straight to the station while Hall made a call to his team. When she arrived, the place was in chaos. An ambulance was just pulling away, lights flashing. Deputies rushed back and forth, securing the scene and interviewing witnesses. Sheriff Dawson stood in the doorway of the evidence room, his face grim as he directed the response. When he spotted Lily, he frowned. I thought you were on patrol on the east side. Got the emergency text, she explained. What happened? Barrow was doing inventory. Someone hit him from behind. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from as far back as Lily could remember. Nothing seems to be missing, but we're doing a full count. Any witnesses? No one saw anything. Her father's phone rang. He checked the screen and his frown deepened. I need to take this. Make yourself useful. Help Wilson take statements. From everyone who was in the building. As he walked away to answer the call, Lily noticed he'd taken his wedding ring off, something he did when he was extremely stressed. It reminded her of how he'd looked during her mother's final days in the hospital. Deputy Wilson waved her over. Glad you're here. This is nuts. Who found Barrow? Lily asked, getting out her notebook. Cleaning lady. Came in to empty the trash, found him on the floor. And everyone who was in the building? Wilson consulted his list. Night shift had just started. 4 deputies. Cleaning crew of 2. Your dad was in his office with County Commissioner Reed. Lily's pen paused. Reed? Why was he here? Wilson shrugged. Budget stuff, I think. Reed was Porter's brother-in-law and business partner. As Lily helped collect statements, she kept an eye on the evidence room door. Yellow crime scene tape now blocked the entrance, but she could see inside to where the attack had occurred, right by the cabinet that held files from the last 5 years. Her phone buzzed again, another text from the unknown number, Hall. State police taking over investigation. Don't share what you know with anyone. Meet me at courthouse steps, 7 a.m. tomorrow. Looking up, she caught her father watching her from across the room, his eyes troubled. When their gazes met, he didn't look away. Instead, he walked over. Lily, he said quietly. Whatever you think is happening here, whatever Hall has told you, be careful. There are things at play you don't understand. Then help me understand, she pleaded. Her father glanced around to make sure no one could hear them. Not here. Not now. He squeezed her shoulder. Just remember who your family is. Before she could respond, the station doors burst open. Daniel Hall entered, flanked by state police officers and his investigation team. Sheriff Dawson, he called out, his voice carrying authority that filled the room. By order of the governor, my office is assuming control of this investigation and all evidence in this facility. The room went silent. Deputies stopped mid-conversation to stare. Hall's eyes found Lily briefly before addressing the entire room. Every member of this department will be interviewed. No one touches anything in the evidence room until my team has processed it. Is that clear? As murmurs of shock rippled through the station, Lily realized there was no going back now. Whatever lay ahead, she had crossed a line. Aligning herself with Hall meant possibly standing against her father and everything she had grown up believing in. And yet, as she watched Hall take control of the scene with confident efficiency, she couldn't help feeling that for the first time since this all began, someone was finally taking action to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. As murmurs of shock rippled through the station, Lily realized there was no going back now. Whatever lay ahead, she had crossed a line. Aligning herself with Hall meant possibly standing against her father and everything she had grown up believing in. And yet, as she watched Hall take control of the scene with confident efficiency, she couldn't help feeling that for the first time since this all began, Someone was finally taking action to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. The Pine Valley Town Hall was packed to capacity. Everyone who mattered in the county had come for the emergency meeting called by Mayor Thompson. The attack on evidence technician Mike Barrow and the state's takeover of the sheriff's department investigation had become the biggest scandal in town memory. Lily sat in the back row dressed in plain clothes instead of her uniform. She hadn't been suspended, not officially, but her father had made it clear she should take some time off until things settled down. That was 3 days ago. Since then, she'd been working directly with Daniel Hall's team, reviewing case files and explaining department procedures. The crowd hushed as Mayor Thompson approached the podium, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by formal solemnity. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "As you know, serious allegations have been made regarding evidence handling in our sheriff's department. State Attorney General Hall is here to address the council and public about the ongoing investigation." Daniel Hall walked to the podium looking every inch the powerful state official in his perfectly pressed suit. Cameras flashed as he adjusted the microphone. "Good evening," he began, his deep voice filling the room. 3 weeks ago, my office received reports of potential evidence tampering in several rural counties. Our preliminary investigation led us to focus on Pine Valley due to an unusually high number of case dismissals involving certain prominent defendants. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the front row, Frank Porter sat stone-faced between his lawyers. "Last night," Hall continued, "we executed search warrants on multiple properties and businesses. As a result of evidence obtained, I'm announcing formal charges against 3 individuals." The room went completely still. Lily's heart pounded so loudly she was sure people could hear it. "Former evidence clerk Joseph Wells has been arrested in Florida on charges of evidence tampering and obstruction of justice." Gasps and whispers broke out. Hall waited for silence before continuing. "County Commissioner Peter Reed has been charged with conspiracy and bribery." More commotion. Reed wasn't present. He'd called in sick to the meeting, Lily noticed. "And finally," Hall paused, his expression grave, "businessman Frank Porter is being charged with multiple counts of bribery, witness tampering, and conspiracy to obstruct justice." The room erupted. Porter shot to his feet, face red with anger as his lawyers tried to pull him back down. Reporters shouted questions. The mayor banged her gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Through the chaos, Lily's eyes found her father. Sheriff Dawson sat rigid in his chair on the council platform, his face a mask that revealed nothing. She searched for any sign of surprise or shock, but found none. He'd known this was coming. When the noise finally subsided, Hall continued. "The evidence suggests Mr. Porter systematically bribed officials to interfere with cases involving his business interests. With Mr. Wells's cooperation, we've documented at least 12 instances where evidence was altered, misplaced, or tampered, with to ensure favorable outcomes for Mr. Porter or his associates." A reporter stood up. "What about Sheriff Dawson? Was he involved?" The question hung in the air. Lily held her breath. "At this time," Hall said carefully, "we have no evidence suggesting Sheriff Dawson actively participated in these schemes." Relief flooded through Lily, but it was short-lived. "However," Hall continued, "there are serious questions about oversight and willful blindness that must be addressed." Mayor Thompson spoke up. "What happens to our sheriff's department now?" "State police will temporarily oversee operations while the investigation concludes. I've also requested a full audit of all cases handled during the affected period." As the meeting continued, Lily slipped out a side door, needing air. She stood on the steps of Town Hall, breathing deeply in the cool evening air. A few minutes later, the door opened behind her. "I thought I might find you here," her father said quietly. They stood side by side, looking out at the town square. "Did you know?" Lily asked finally. "About Porter and Wells?" The sheriff was silent for so long Lily thought he wouldn't answer. "I suspected," he finally admitted, "but I didn't want to believe it." "Why didn't you investigate? Porter owned half this town. Reed controlled our budget. I told myself I needed more evidence before making accusations. He sighed heavily. Then I told myself it was just a few minor cases, nothing worth risking the department over. Those weren't just cases, Dad. They were people who deserved justice. I know. His voice cracked slightly. I know that now. The door opened again, and Daniel Hall stepped out. He nodded, respectfully, to the sheriff. The council is asking for you, Sheriff Dawson. Sheriff Dawson straightened his shoulders and turned to go back inside. He paused at the door. Whatever happens in there, Lily, I want you to know I'm proud of what you did. It took courage to stand up for what's right. More courage than I had. After her father disappeared inside, Lily and Hall stood in awkward silence. What will happen to him? She finally asked. That's not up to me, Hall said. The evidence doesn't show he took bribes or actively participated in the tampering. But as department head, he bears responsibility. He'll resign, Lily said, knowing her father. He won't drag this out. Hall nodded. For what it's worth, I believe he's a good man who made bad choices. Inside, they could hear raised voices as the meeting continued. The fallout was just beginning. Where does this leave me? Lily asked. I don't think I can stay here after this. You helped break open a major corruption case, Hall said. That counts for something. Not in Pine Valley, it doesn't. Here I'll always be the deputy who turned on her father and his department. Hall seemed to consider something. My office could use someone with your instincts and integrity. The state attorney's investigation unit has an opening. Lily looked at him in surprise. Are you offering me a job? Consider it a lateral move. You'd need some additional training, but yes, Lily said without hesitation. I'd like that. 6 months later, Lily Dawson sat at her desk in the state attorney's office reviewing case files for her latest assignment. A photograph on her desk showed her and her father at his retirement party, both smiling despite the circumstances that had led to it. Her phone rang. Investigator Dawson, she answered. Lily, it's your father. Just checking if we're still on for dinner tonight. Wouldn't miss it, she said. Her father had moved to a small cabin by the lake where he spent his days fishing and working on a book about rural law enforcement. The scandal had faded from the headlines, but not from either of their memories. How's the new boss treating you? He asked. Lily glanced through her office window to where Daniel Hall was briefing his team on an upcoming case. He caught her eye and gave a quick nod of acknowledgement. He's demanding but fair, she answered. I'm learning a lot. Good, her father said. That's good. After they hung up, Lily returned to her case files. On top was a note from Hall. New evidence, tampering allegations in Westbrook County. Your assessment? She smiled slightly. 6 months ago, a simple misunderstanding in a coffee shop had changed everything. She'd lost her hometown, nearly lost her relationship with her father, but found her true calling. Sometimes accusations, even false ones, could lead to unexpected truths. And sometimes the most valuable lessons came from the most painful mistakes. The end.